Hello and welcome. Today we are diving into some of the most powerful love stories ever written, these incredible, timeless Persian romances. But we're going to look at them through a completely new, kind of scientific lens, one that can actually map the very architecture of our emotions.
So let me just kick things off with a question for you. Is love a feeling, or is it a geometric shape? I know, that sounds a little wild, but trust me, it's the key to unlocking a hidden world inside these classic tales. And to answer it, we have to look at these stories through that new scientific lens.
So the tool we're going to be using is called the Brain Kinematics Model, or BKM for short. Now, don't get bogged down in the jargon. Think of it less like a super complex science paper and more like a set of, say, architectural blueprints for a story's emotions. It lets us see the hidden structure that's holding the whole thing together.
Okay, so the BKM breaks love down into three basic layers. First, you've got the raw feelings, right? The building blocks. The model calls them emotional motifs. You can think of them like individual notes of music. Then it looks at how those notes get arranged into a melody over time. That's the story itself. And finally, it reveals how that melody creates what it calls a meaning fractal, which is the whole shebang, the complete complex symphony of the entire story.
And you know what? This is where it gets really fascinating. The BKM discovered that these super complex emotional stories almost always boil down to one of 6 core geometric shapes. You've got everything from a vertical ascent towards the spiritual to a radial collapse that centers on loss. These 6 geometries, they're going to be our guide for the rest of this explainer.
So let's put this model to the test, shall we? We're going to apply this BKM lens to 6 iconic romances and see what hidden shapes we can uncover in each one. Let's do it.
First up, we have the ancient story of Yusuf and Ramin. Our model maps this romance as a really clear case of what it calls horizontal turbulence.
And you can totally see why. This is not some gentle, evolving love story. Nope. This story is driven by impulsive, super high-intensity desire. It's like a rebellious natural force that is constantly crashing up against the rules of society. It's not rising or falling, it's just spreading out in this wide, chaotic, turbulent pattern, and it's all fueled by the character's own choices.
Next, we have the incredibly famous tragedy of Layli and Majnun, and its emotional geometry, well, it could not be more different. The BKM identifies this one as a radial collapse.
See, in this story, the lovers are kept apart, and that very separation, that deprivation, makes their passion grow to its absolute maximum. So the crucial thing here is that every single feeling, every action, every emotional wave in the story converges on one single central point, the absence of their union. It's like a love that just collapses inward on itself.
All right, let's move to our third story, Yusuf and Zoleikha, which charts a completely different path, a vertical transformation. Here, the story kicks off with this intense, earthly, physical desire. But over time, that raw emotion gets purified and it transforms into a higher spiritual connection. It's a really clear upward journey, an ascent from the messy turbulence of passion to the calm unity of divine love.
Our fourth example, Khosrow and Shireen, isn't really about sudden passion. It's about earning love through a process the model calls spiral growth. So unlike the others, this love isn't some single lightning strike. It's more like a slow, deliberate climb. The characters face all these trials, they fail, they learn, and then they try again. And each cycle brings them closer to a more mature, more ethical kind of love. It's a perfect spiral, growing outward and upward through experience.
Now for a romance that crosses enemy lines, Bijan and Manajay. The shape it forms is what the BKM calls a bilateral bridge. This is a love story between a Persian warrior and a Turanian princess. We're talking 2 rival empires here. Their love, which is really focused on loyalty and courage, literally acts as a bridge connecting these 2 opposing worlds. Its geometry is defined by this incredibly powerful act of unification.
And for our final story, Zal and Rudabeth, we have a love that seems guided by fate itself, tracing the elegant shape of a helical destiny.
The love here is so calm and deeply coherent because it's not a struggle against fate, it's an alignment with it. Their love unfolds along this predetermined path, kind of like 2 strands of DNA intertwining, moving forward together to fulfill some cosmic purpose.
Okay, so we've looked at 6 different stories, 6 totally different shapes. Now, let's zoom out and see how they all fit together on a single, unified map of love.
And when we put it all together, this is what we get. I mean, this table just brilliantly illustrates the entire spectrum. At a glance, you can see how each story has its own unique emotional fingerprint across intensity, meaning, and agency. This isn't just some random collection of stories. It's a complete system for mapping all the different ways we experience love.
Let's just grab one of those axes to see how different they really are. Just look at the range of emotional intensity. On one end, you have the calm, stable love of Zal and Rudabeh. But on the complete opposite end, you have the all-consuming, suffering-fueled passion of Layli and Majnun. It just goes to show you how vast the landscape of love can truly be.
Or think about that constant push and pull between our own choices and our destiny. On one end, you have Visk and Ramin, a love driven almost entirely by free will and rebellion. And then, at the complete opposite pole, there's Zal and Rudabeh, whose love is basically guided by a pre-written cosmic script. Most stories, and hey, maybe our own lives, fall somewhere in between.
So, what's the big takeaway from all of this? What does this new map actually show us about these stories, and maybe even about love itself?
Well, here's the crucial point. These aren't just simple love stories. The research shows them as something much, much deeper, a sophisticated system for mapping the entire spectrum of our emotional lives, from that raw, instinctive desire all the way up to spiritual enlightenment. In a way, they're nothing less than blueprints of the human heart.
So I'll leave you with a final thought. We've seen 6 distinct geometries of love: horizontal turbulence, radial collapse, vertical transformation, spiral growth, a bilateral bridge, and a helical destiny. These stories map 6 architectures of love. So, what shape is yours?